Welcome back. The program is still the Afia Morning Show. Good morning once again from the east side. I'm Natalie Uku. And of course, Nnamdi is here as we get to Friday. We're just wishing on Friday already right before this. Nnamdi, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. Just waiting for Friday.
Yes. What's your plan for Friday?
Nothing. I just put my mind in Lagos boy mood.
What's the Lagos boy mood? Because many people don't know what the Lagos boy mood is.
It's a way of thinking. It's all about enjoyment. You have to first wear native, not normal fitted. It has to be free.
Right.
This is all one bed native. So it just didn't wear the cap. But after that,
I'm wondering why you kept this in the wardrobe for too long. It's absolutely stunning. I mean, this
because it's for Lagos. It was in Lagos. It's there. Okay. Even with my gold chain. My gold chain is still in Lagos.
Yes.
So there are things you'll never see me wear. In my modest Enugu life. But the designer frames, all those things, they are essential parts of the Lagos lifestyle. So on a Friday, you go out of your house on a Friday evening and you come back when the party finishes.
Okay,
which could be Monday morning.
Which could be Monday morning, right? And you go straight to work on Monday morning. I mean, many Lagos high lives can agree to that. Of course, they have to, when we're doing that, Tobe, the Nka Lounge producer, he was just dancing behind the camera because he understands that Lagos life that Nnamdi is referring to. So yes, and he's going back to continue the dance. So we'll continue to watch him with our Fish Islands. We're not here alone. We do have Afia TV and radio sports presenter, Mr. CeeCee Emechebe, on the review this morning. CeeCee, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm very good, Natalie. Good morning.
Good morning. So good to have you. I mean, your analysis is always so, you have this thing you do where you say something so blunt and somehow it's a jab, but the person doesn't know, and you say it so politely. What's your secret?
I don't know. I guess it's the mutual respect I share with people generally, and then diplomacy. Somebody once said diplomacy is akin to telling someone to go to hell and making the person look forward to the trip. So I think sometimes one has to be diplomatic.
Would you be doing any of that during the review this morning?
Hopefully. I think now you understand what I'm trying to say.
I'm looking for where you say it already.
Oh, yeah. and by the way, the Faji mood takes me down to memory lane. No, just looking at this brings back memories of Lagos too.
Fantastic. Faji.
Okay, let's take a look at the headlines this morning. We'll begin with this day today. Top story. Tinubu to editors, criticize government policies but don't compromise national unity. This day, Arise Group to launch an app in January to shape future of social media. IHS Holding Limited Chairman Sam Darwish credits Nigeria for strong Q3 earnings. And moving away from this day, straight to the Punch. Weaker naval officer clash. Ex-generals fume as federal government orders probe. FCT Minister Yerima face-off sparks concerns over civilian-military relations. Be fair, truthful in government criticism, Tinubu tells editors. Mohbad's family demands fresh probe, bars wife from using surname. OPEC report shows Nigeria underproducing crude again. PDP insists on Ibadan Convention amid court orders. National Assembly approves Tinubu's 1.15 trillion naira domestic loan. Reps probe 20 trillion naira abandoned federal properties. My critics now praise me, says Obasanjo. Nigerian Tribune. Damagum-led NWC affirms Saturday's convention, blames APC for PDP crisis. Senators clash over delineation of wards in Warri by INEC. Also here, editors conference, media seek tax reliefs, low interest loans. Tinubu pleads for journalism practiced with sense of national duty. Makinde making Ibadan livable, Obasanjo says at inauguration of mega bus terminal. And also here, I am tired of moving motions without results. Benue lawmaker laments rising herders killings. On The Guardian. NGE insists on free press as Tinubu urges fairness, pledges recovery. Kano prays appeal courts to stop terrorism charge ruling. Minister SAN defer on weekend's confrontation with military. Federal government outlaws mother tongue policy, reinstates English as language of instruction. Presidency denies Trump effect on NGX sell-offs as Khan seeks end to genocide. And of course, lastly here, IHS Holding Chairman Sam Darwish credits Nigeria for strong Q3 2025 earnings.
All right, we'll start with the Daily Sun here. Kanu court asks appeal court to stop November 20 judgment at trial court, expresses fear of unlawful conviction. Groups protest in Abuja seek global intervention to secure Kanu's release. Abuse of constitution, reason democracy fails. That's according to INEC. Fingers Nigerian presidents as main culprits. Tinubu to Nigerians, we must join hands to defend democracy. 2027 polls under threat over party infighting, Kalu warns. Senate dismisses reports of alleged plot to sack Akpabio, approves bill to protect domestic workers from sexual abuse, unpaid labor, others. PDP National Convention will hold as scheduled NWC Organizing Committee. Add on to the Daily Trust. Despite Tinubu's pledge, FG takes 1.15 trillion naira loan. Government drops mother tongue policy. World Cup, Eagles battle Gabon in crucial playoff today. I lost 120 million naira goods cash to market fire, and this is according to a trader from the recent fire in Kano State yesterday. Very, very, very sad. Moving straight to the Daily Independent. Court order, despite court order, PDP vows to go ahead with National Convention. Journalists indispensable in electoral integrity, that's according to Tinubu. Senate okays 1.15 trillion naira loan to fund 2025 budget deficit, moves to amend NPHCDA Act, dismisses reports of alleged plot to remove Akpabio. Nigeria to raise 150 billion naira for vaccine procurement. Reps probe 12 trillion naira funding of DFIs. Tinubu has spent 1.15 trillion importing ammunition from US, that's according to the IMPI. FG not ready to meet our demands, ASU laments. I'll keep pleading with my deputy, won't force him to join APC. That's according to Governor Diri. And finally, from The Nation, conflicting court orders and convention, PDP factions clash. Damagum's Ironwood's factions give conflicting directives. Judgment today in Lamido's suit. Ibadan court extends go-ahead order. Controversy widens over weekend military officers clash on land. Makinde has made Ibadan livable, says Obasanjo. President said executive bill to create Cocoa Board. Kanu asks appeal court to quash dismissal of his no-case submission.
All right, rather interesting headlines this morning. So many interesting headlines. I think we'll start from the one that has been, shall we say, blazing the trail in Nigeria right now. And maybe that's where you will now drop that subtle jab, Mr. CeeCee. I predict. The Punch. Weekend naval officer clash. Ex-generals fume as federal government orders probe. We have seen some of the officials already praising the composure of AM Yerima during that standoff with the FCT minister. And now some Nigerians are demanding that the minister apologizes for his conduct. What's your entire appreciation of this clash? And some would describe a show of shame.
Yeah, I think calling it a show of shame is simply putting it mildly, because it was a case of somebody with such a high-ranking position in government bringing himself down to a level that's beneath him on paper anyway. But, you know, I don't want to talk much about the merits and demerits of his actions, because there's a difference between the office and the person in the office, you know. So really, the FCT minister did not cover himself in glory with that altercation I had with Lieutenant A.M. Yerima, who, by the way, is the people's hero. When I say the people's hero, I'm talking about most people who look at what happened there because of the antecedents. Because at the end of the day, most times people look at a narrative that has been created based on antecedents that have been set. Wike has been portrayed by many as a power-hungry, power-drunk politician who always bends people to his will. That's the portrayal, that's the perception that people have generally of him. So he always according to the perception that people have of him, bends people to his will, intimidates them, uses bluff, uses bragado, uses foul language, abusive language, and then gets people to bend to his will. But, this was a classic case of an unstoppable force coming in contact with an immovable object. And then we all saw what happened. It was the immovable object that thrived in that area. And that's why the ego of Wike has been bruised. Then some would say that the federal government's authority has been challenged, but I beg to differ in many respects. This was a case of a man who was representing an institution, the military. Now, I think it is those who don't really understand the dynamics of the military. My first secondary school was a military school. That's Command Secondary School at Abakaliki. That was a long time ago before I eventually went on to the Federal Government College, Okigwe. So I happen to know some dynamics of military. The military are an institution that run based on chain of command and hierarchy. And that's one thing they will never, ever underestimate or undermine for any reason whatsoever. Now, what Yarima did was that he received an instruction from his commanding officer. Now, his commanding officer was his principal, and that's the retired Chief of Navy Staff himself. So he's the one that assigned him to protect his property. Now, being the ADC, that's his job. And based on chain of command in the military, a military officer does not listen to any instruction from anyone other than two people. First of all, his direct commander, his direct instructor in the chain of command, and secondly, the CIC. CNC, that is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, and in this case, is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Tinubu. So nobody has the right to do what he did. Now, for the legality or illegality of what Wike's people were coming to do is not the issue. If he had issues, which I think at the point he did, he called the Chief of Defense Staff, who is even the wrong person to call at that point, but he called the Chief of Defense Staff and still went ahead to confront the man and got himself covered in shame. He insulted the man. Yarima refused to budge. He would say, "You're a fool." He said, "I'm not a fool." In other words, he was simply saying, and it was not just a case of him saying, "I'm not a fool." It's a case of him saying, "Look, I cannot play the fool to your whims and caprices. I'm standing tall because I respect order, I respect myself, I have integrity." So many people will look beyond the scenes and see what happened there. It was a very, very dramatic situation, but with a lot of lessons to be learned.
I think the conversation, Mr. CeeCee, like you rightly pointed out, may have shifted away from the legality or illegality of what was going on there to the conduct of the public official in that situation. Nnamdi, would you like to contribute to this?
I just want to ask, because we've been going back and forth. We saw Wike's senior special assistant on media come out to say that the man that has the land there was scammed, and instead of him to use legal means, he's using force to protect his land. And my question is, if the FCT minister's office is really sure that the man was scammed, what information have they sent him about the process to ratify or do the needful, if indeed there are legal procedures to go about it? Is bringing the bulldozer the way to do it? We know Wike has been going around the state with bulldozers. People have been complaining. He's not answering anybody. He wants to be El Rufai 2.0. But people are saying this is not about Abuja master plan. This is about, he demolished somewhere next to his building houses for judges. It's not like it's El Rufai, I remember, in all fairness, was to get back the natural parks and the green spaces as designated in the original Abuja master plan. In Wike's case, seems to be reallocation of land. And that's how people feel anyway, that he's reallocating land to friends and cronies. And the question I want to ask is, are people really behind Yerima because what he did is right, or because they don't like Nation Wike? Because that is the angle his supporters and people from the APC are coming from. That, someone even had the gall, and, as usual, I was waiting for it and it happened. Somebody if it was Peter Obi, would we be talking like this? I'm like, what does Peter Obi have to do with it? But I knew that would come up, and it did come up. So my question is, if that was anybody else except Wike, would we be supporting or against the soldier?
Somehow I'm going to connect this with another issue right now so that people can get the point, the ramified implication of what we're saying now. Like, we talk about the running battle of Nnamdi Kanu going on there. Now, Nnamdi Kanu, love him or hate him, because there are many of his actions and his utterances that do not sit down well with many people, even amongst the Southeasterners, that's Ndibo. But one thing about Nnamdi Kanu is what he represents. He represents the Igbo people. That's his voice. So him being persecuted is seen as though the Igbo man is being persecuted, which is why even when those who disagree with his rhetoric, disagree with his agitation, see the persecution going on, they see themselves as being represented. He's the voice that they refuse to be. So they'll stand with him and then support him and then stand in solidarity with him. Now, the same case here. Yarima, it's not necessarily a case of Yarima being the model soldier. Yes, and of course, in fairness to him, he was a model in terms of respecting the chain of command in the military.
Yeah.
No, there was a film I watched many years ago. That's The General's Daughter, starring John Travolta and some other people. Now, there was a soldier, a high-ranking officer that made a statement, very humorous but instructive. He said that there are 3 ways to do things. He said the good, the right way, the wrong way, and the army way. Now, I took note of what he said there. That's telling you that the military tend to live in a bubble of their own, an institution. They live in a particular kind of matrix that should not be interrupted. You are aligned to their whims and caprices and not vice versa. That's how they are. Now, having said that, Yarima had his own flaws to some. That's those who actually defend Nyesom Wike. But the fact is, because of, I know I mentioned earlier, antecedents. Wike has been known, has been perceived by many as power drunk, has been perceived as many as violating people's space and then using his authority, that's what you call abuse of power. Going there and then based on the fact that he's also a lawyer, so using law, maybe misinterpreting the law to bring out the Abuja master plan and then take land and then give to his cronies and friends and all sorts of people that he wants to give based on the fact that he has a God complex. No, that's the impression that many people have of him. So many were waiting patiently. In fact, many people identify with Yarima in the sense that this is somebody who is doing what I've always wanted to do, but I'm not able to do. Yarima has done that. He has stood his ground against Wike. So I identify with Yarima. Not necessarily endorsing Yarima's confrontation with a senior officer of the Federal Republic, a senior official rather, the FCT minister. And by the way, let's just clarify 1 or 2 things there. Some people try to liken this to what happened between, I'm trying to remember what it was, Fashola or that's the BRT.
The Navy officer in the BRT lane.
Yes. Now that was a totally different ballgame because
that was somebody breaking the law.
Yes, the guy was breaking the law. That's number 1. Number 2, a governor and FCT minister are not the same.
People are saying the FCT minister is the governor of Abuja.
Not true. That's what they say, but that's not true.
Yeah, the FCT minister is not recognized in the chain of, in the level of president, governor, local government. Yes. Those are the chief executives.
Yes.
The territorial chief executives that are recognized.
Precisely.
You recognize the governor but then we know now that they said Abuja in the last election, the and not and.
Okay, the 25%.
Abuja may become a state now and the estimate will become a governor. But
it's strange.
But before we leave this topic, I just have to ask this question. Apparently, there's a point during that whole interaction where Wike gives him the phone to talk to the chief of defense staff.
Yes.
And, the guy's composure changes when he picks the phone. He listens and stands his ground. If the chief of defense staff had given him a counter instruction, he would have left. So people are speculating that there is no way Wike gave him the phone, talked to the defense staff, and the defense staff said, leave that place and let the minister do his thing. And the soldier said, no, I'll stand my ground.
It's difficult to say because
there's no way.
Because
by now the guy will be facing a court martial.
Yes, I agree. But because you don't, there's a level of immunity you will not have, even if your principal was the former chief of Navy staff. And by the way, the chief of Navy staff is subservient than chief of defense staff in the army hierarchy. Having said that, it's still a reminder of this issue of chain of command, because you could see that when he was talking with Wike, calm, collected, but composed, and his hands were in his pockets.
Yeah.
And then when he saw that it was the CDS that was on the phone,
his hands came out of his pocket
because he recognizes that. In other words, he was saying, this is the chain of command that I recognize and I respond to. So it seems so obvious that they must have had a conversation, but one thing is certain, based on the fact that this is somebody who respected the chain of command, the CDS did not instruct him to leave that place. They must have had that discussion there. So really, I think it's down to But there's many underlining things here that we need to be very, very cautious of. I like to read between the lines. Wike has had his comeuppance. That's what everybody has agreed on right now. He's had his comeuppance. And the top military brass are really fuming. They are not happy with him. They are glad that somebody stood up to him.
Yeah.
They will treat. We can't say this on air because it's not the right kind of language. But they will treat his mess up eventually. That's what they are planning to do. I don't have evidence. This is an allegation, but that's the situation on ground. But as it stands right now, I think we need to be extremely careful. When I say we, I'm referring to those in high positions of authority who are civilians. Need to be extremely careful how they relate with military officers. Not that military officers are sacred cows.
In a civilian society, a policeman should be able to arrest a soldier because a soldier is not. But I think the hangover from the military era is still with us. So the military are untouchable. But in any civilized society, the military is, once you are not at the theater of war and you're at home, a policeman can arrest you. But I don't want us to dwell too much on it because on the Daily Independent, the Senate has okayed 1.15 trillion naira loan to fund the 2025 budget deficit. And this is coming at the same time that the NNPC is trying to convince us that 200 yes, that's out of 3 trillion, then there was 107, payables, receivables or payables. Like you have 210 million trillion. The NNPC cannot account for. The budget is 49.9 trillion naira. The oversight is 59.9 trillion. Now they're looking for 1.15 trillion loan. They sold Euro bonds for how many $1 million, taking debt after debt, borrowing after borrowing. Yet 4 times the budget vanished into thin air. So what is your take on this new loan that the government has agreed to?
It's simply recklessness. Yet again, recklessness. Approving, getting that loan approved. To start with, of course, it's even fortifying the arguments that many have made of the various parastatals that are on ground that should be playing, so that should play as checks and balances to the president. Now, why approve something that is highly detrimental to the economic future of the country? Monies are on account, 201 trillion naira. It's not peanuts. Now, why is it unaccounted for? That means that there is a breach somewhere. That means that the money couldn't have just vanished into thin air. It went into some pockets, some accounts, offshore accounts, onshore accounts. Something happened. But, when we remember let me not get into that. I want to talk about the issue of, who is the Minister of Petroleum and...
The President has been Minister of Petroleum since the Buhari tenure.
Yeah.
I think even Obasanjo briefly was Minister of Petroleum himself.
Yeah. No. So this control, is this what we're looking at? The issue of control of resources. Is this what they have in mind? So there are many questions left unanswered, and it's only when we speak truth to power that power will have to speak back to us and then give us accountability, because they are our servants. That's why they're called ministers. They are our servants. They are there to serve us, and they cannot serve us effectively if they show us that we can't have trust in their competence, trust in their integrity. Who does that? 201 trillion naira just vanishing into thin air, and then of course, if nobody says much about this, to be swept under the carpet as usual. Now that's the situation that we find ourselves in the country, and really, God will help us.
God will help us indeed. Let's move to Daily Sun, and of course, there's some interesting headlines here. Mazin and the Kano Court asks Appeal Court to stop November 20 judgment at trial court. Now we understand that the detained IPOB leader is reaching out. He's asking the Appeal Court to halt the Federal High Court from delivering its judgments come November 20. Of course, he's basically marshalling out the concern he has about being wrongfully convicted. Now, he's even questioning the entire jurisdiction of the whole trial as a whole, the court, and the issues being leveled against him. Now he has gone to the higher court, asking the higher court to order the lower court to step down that plan to judge him on the 20th of November. What's your take on this development?
I think it's very, very clear. Nnamdi Kanu, at least he has a basic, not a wholesome, but basic understanding of the law. He knows that he can actually appeal to the appeal courts to do the needful so that there will be no miscarriage of justice, because that's basically what we're looking at right now. We talked about this on the show several times, that Nnamdi Kanu till date, and I was very, very certain that even with that deadline that he was given, he will not recognize the jurisdiction of the courts because of the manner in which he was abducted and then everything that happened in between. So a judgment, the November 20th, which is exactly a week from today, it's very, very clear that the government, and that he's at the mercy of the government, and then the government might decide to slap a very serious charge on him, which for me, and I've talked about that before, I don't mind reiterating that, will place the judgment on trial rather than Nnamdi Kanu. Because as it stands right now, it's not Mazi Nnamdi Kanu that's on trial. It is the federal government that's on trial. Everybody's watching. All the interested stakeholders and power brokers are watching to see how his case is handled, because they are sitting on a keg of gunpowder. So for him to do that, it's more like a stay of execution. Let's put it that way. If the appeals court decides to grant his request and give the instruction, and that's another thing, because impunity has become a part of culture in the country. Sometimes whenever certain things, maybe an instruction is given from the court, and then the court decides not to respond to that instruction. We've seen that. I mean, come on, this is a drama theater. I studied creative art at the University of Lagos, so I'm used to seeing drama several times. It's a normal thing. So,
what the people involved in this case, who we refer to as stakeholders, what are they failing to understand about the keg of gunpowder when attention turns to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case? What are they not understanding about this particular case being tried in court and its implications on the Southeast region?
What they fail to understand, just like you rightly pointed out, is the regional dimension to it. One region has been marginalized for so long, and that's the southeastern region, has been marginalized for so long, has received the wrong end of the stick. That's if they even see a stick to start with, for so long. The talk of, I don't mean to reopen old wounds, but 1970, after January 15, 1970, there was this talk of no victor, no vanquished. That's been very, very far from the truth because of the poor conditions that Ndibo were given. And ever since, people have been treating Ndibo very, very poorly. And that's part of what led to the agitation. Yes, I've always said this time without number, and I'll continue talking about that. I will never, ever support a rebellion. Never. I will never support a rebellion, because I'm somebody who believes strongly in the rule of law. I believe strongly in dialogue. I believe strongly in referendum. I believe strongly in all those different things. The ballot is stronger than the bullet, that kind of mentality. I believe strongly in that. But what I also believe in is the agitation. There is agitation for self-determination. There's agitation for for your sovereignty to be respected. Because basically, because of the Republican nature of the Southeasterners, we just want to be given an enabling environment to thrive. A typical Southeasterner is not looking for power.
That's right.
That's the truth. So that's what they fail to realize. They think this is a power contest. They think this is a power tussle, that if Nnamdi Kanu is released, then he'll go and wreak havoc, and then next thing, some Southeasterners will come and then take their portion, that's their inheritance, quote unquote. That's not the point. So they need to be extremely careful, because a man can only be pushed so far. And that's why we talk about sitting on the keg of the gunpowder. If the federal government, who are on trial, I repeat, do not handle this matter delicately, I fear for the worst. I really fear for the worst. Things might happen that they're not able to contain. And that's the implication of
the
this.
case has taken somewhat of an international dimension. We saw him write to the US President Donald Trump, of course, asking him to go ahead and intervene in Nigeria, asking him to make good his initial act or threat to invade Nigeria with the military and attack those armed groups that are going ahead to do what he described as genocide against Christians. So now that the international attention has been drawn to the case, what do you think will be the global implications of the fallout of the November 20 judgment, if it does still stand?
It's going to be there, really, if it does still stand, if November 20th, and also depends on the kind of sentence that's going to be given. If they give him a sentence like maybe life imprisonment or even death for treason, now that is, I cringe to think about the backlash and then the effects, the ripple effects that's going to have. It's when you talk about the Christian genocide in Nigeria, and forgive me for sounding biased, but typically whenever like if you go to the north, if you know about the different kind of religious persecution that's been happening in the north, most times something happens, irrespective of the tribe of the perpetrator. That is the person who is not the kafir, what they call the kafir, the unbeliever,
infidel.
the infidel, the unbeliever. Irrespective of the tribe of the person could be Ibibio, the person could be even Hausa, the person could be maybe Isan or Ibibi or any of the tribes at all, not Igbo. You see that most times the rallying cry is go and destroy
The Igbo shops.
the Igbo shops, all those Igbo people, because the typical Igbo man is identified as primarily Christian. So, even though Mazi Nnamdi Kanu doesn't even profess Christianity as such, he professes Judaism, Reform Judaism. But the relationship between both and then blurring the lines between both is what the perpetrators of this injustice, because it's injustice, might actually find themselves doing, and that will play into the hands of the international observers because they are watching to see what Nigeria will do.
Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has noted that he's been tried based on a now repealed law or an act, right? He has mentioned that and he opted to defend himself. Do you think that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has made significant headway in his case, judging by his shocking approach to it? First of all, sacking his legal team, citing a repealed law, researching on all of it. Has he unraveled issues around his case that could finally give him what he wants, and of course his supporters what they want?
Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is an extremely intelligent man, and we've seen that. We know that a lawyer, somebody who studied law, is bound by the dictates of the legal institution most times. And even though Nnamdi Kanu chooses to defend himself, one thing he's not is a lawyer. He's not a lawyer. So he tends to get away with one or two unorthodox approaches towards his defense. And he knows what's involved. So the law that has been repealed, he's brought to the notice of everyone. His focus actually is not necessarily because he knows that he's not going to be let free. He's not going to walk out of there free just like that. He's pointing attention to the illegality of the process. That's his focus. And as he's doing that, emphasizing that on that, and he knows that his lawyers, no matter how loyal they may seem to be to him, they also have an allegiance to the constitution, the law, the legal framework,
of the country,
legal framework. So because of that, their allegiance and their conflict of interests, he foresaw that, and that's why he sacked them all and decided to take the stand and defend himself. And we've seen how far that defense has come. He's really a firecracker and a disturbing person to the establishment. And it might play in his favor. It just might play in his favor because he's gotten what he wants, that global attention. All eyes around the world are on Nigeria right now, on the legal institution. They want to check and see what will happen.
So let me ask you this question, because you said something earlier that the government, not Nnamdi Kanu, is on trial.
Yes.
So this is just like if I'm to look at it from Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's point of view, this is a timeline of the trial.
Yes.
An illegal abduction, a release and damages awarded, refusal to release and pay damages, new charges on repealed laws, refusal to hear that case, summary judgments. Did I miss out anything?
No, I don't think you got it pretty much.
So how is it that the Nigerian Bar Association, the body of benchers, all the judicial, civil, everybody is keeping quiet? Are we saying that personal disdain or dislike for the man or for what he stands for is more important than the fact that this is actual, outright constitutional and legal violation? If we are being, because this is not about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now. Let us move him, his message, his mission, his motives aside, and let's look at the law with so many violations. Why are all our guardians of the legal, the halls of legality, why are they all silent?
It's shocking, absolutely shocking, because the legal luminaries are, the silence is deafening. Let's just put it that way. I think that's the best way to put it. And it then calls into question the integrity of the legal system, the level to which they've been compromised. Because as we're talking, even those who come from the same region as the man being persecuted, because it's a persecution, as far as I'm concerned. The people from the same region, from the southeast region, we've not seen any strong forces, strong voices amongst the SANs, amongst the leading legal voices
From
that
the
have
region.
jumped to his defense from the region. We've not seen that. And I'm not going to go as far as saying that they're complicit. No, not necessarily. I would say that they're being cautious, they're being afraid, because there's still that talk about the puppet and the puppet master. There's still that talk about being very, very careful, because apart from the issue of table manners being at play, you just want to avoid offending the key principal and the principalities around him. So I think it's a case of them compromising their values and then their oath to defend the law and to uphold the constitution, because we've seen so many glaring, you've mentioned all of them, no need to start reiterating them, glaring violations of the law. No matter how bad Nnamdi Kanu is perceived to be, no matter how bad he is, he's still a citizen, still a human being, and he has rights. He's entitled to his rights. He needs to be given a free and fair trial. This trial has been anything but free and fair, and that's the issue right now. So at the end of the day, it's a huge indictment on the legal framework and then the legal luminaries that are there, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
And I think we've had the police, the DSS, all come and extend this trial with, I watched some of those, I read transcripts rather, some of those witness submissions, and I was deeply embarrassed at what they spent hours in the court talking about. Okay, did you see him? No, I didn't see him. But we heard he said that. I'm like,
circumstantial evidence. All of
is this why they brought a DSS officer whose face is not being shown? Okay, did you find weapons in his house? Did you find what? But they're like, and it's almost like they're just drawing out the trial. And I this is not me holding brief for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu or holding brief for IPOB, but if they keep coming for groups and you keep quiet, when they come for you, there'll be nobody to talk for you, which is the honest truth. And I think the violation of one person's rights is the violation of everybody's rights, and people need to start looking at it. Let us forget our points of view. Let us forget our issues. Let's forget where we stand. If he breaks a law, arrest him by all means. But don't, for personal interest, violate, which is where I think this whole thing is muddled up. But what do you think will end this whole impasse now? What needs to happen?
Okay, first of all, we need to establish the difference between what needs to happen and what probably will happen. What needs to happen is all the charges need to be dropped, and then there has to be an understanding and undertaking that is signed, an apology, because come on, his rights have been violated for a very long time. There has to be an apology, and then there has to be a sort of, like I said, an undertaking signed, and because you should find common ground. Now, the common ground they should be looking for is the security and safety of the nation. And then, having done that, if you're able to find that common ground, at least you will pacify. Because if Nnamdi Kanu is contained, now this is the word I'm using, these are my words, it's not the words of Afia TV, it's my words. If he's contained, if his emotions are contained, if his tendencies are contained, based on maybe an undertaking, so okay, fine, we agree with your grievances, we are sorry for what we have done. Okay, now, in the best interest of the country, avoid this, avoid that, avoid this. We are not going to violate your space anymore. You're now free to move about, but see things you're not meant to do because it's going to speak ill of us. You do that, it's going to pacify the southeastern region. It's definitely going to pacify Ndibu. It's going to pacify many who will then feel, judgment has been done. And also, because there's no way you can separate the political implications of this. If this happens, if Tinubu is wise, that is His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, if he's wise, the resolution of this matter is going to be a major milestone in his re-election bid.
But we hear that rather rumor. Well, apparently, they rather be in London, hovering around the detention. They said they're apparently rumored to be high-level talks in London about the early release of Senator A.K. Ekweremadu, which of course I think is a scam.
Yes.
I mean, it's a 9-year charge. He's to serve 4.5. He has served 3. He's almost out. So all this dilly-dallying and dancing and pretending, by the time they finish these false negotiations, his time will be up. He can even finish earlier for good behavior and come out and they'll say, oh, we did it. Which of course, most people will not know that. They just know that. So But I think they are facing the wrong Igbo man. They want to appease the southeast.
Yeah.
They need to look at Mazda Kanu saying, "Come home already." Nobody's asking them to do anything there. His time is almost up. They're just using his situation for political gain as far as.
Okay, so let's look at this headline quickly before we let you go. Two major headlines. Hope you can react to the both of them. Abuse of constitution, reason democracy fails, according to INEC. And this statement is coming from the INEC rec in Benue State. And in addition to that, at the NGE annual conference, Tinubu to Nigerians, we must join hands to defend democracy. And of course, that also cascades to this day, still on the NGE conference, criticize government policies, but don't compromise national unity. That is Tinubu, President Tinubu to editors. What's your take on INEC accusing the Constitution and, of course, on the remark of the President at the conference?
Well, first of all, talk about INEC accusing the Constitution. No, I'm trying not to laugh, but INEC are meant to be the final hope.
They're saying that that's the reason democracy fails. That's what INEC is saying. That's the reason democracy fails, abuse of the Constitution. Of course, blaming Nigerian presidents for that.
Yeah, so what they are saying in essence is that the Nigerian presidency, let me just say presidency, not the president per se, but the presidency have used them as willing tools to abuse that because they are trying to recuse themselves from the situation. INEC are part and parcel of the rot. They have been for a while. So I think that moral high ground has to be abandoned right now. Because we all know that there's a systemic rot in terms of the constitutional abuse. When Jega went, sorry, not Jega, I beg your pardon, when Mahmoud Yakubu, the former INEC chairman, went in the dead of the night when men were sleeping and then announced results, when there was still a serious case concerning the irregularities of what the beavers were saying, the glitches here and there. In spite of all the answers and concerns, INEC went and then released a result. Where does that place INEC on a moral scale? So I think INEC should be, they should just focus on ensuring that the anomalies that happened in the past elections do not happen again, and not speak about things that don't concern them.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. CeeCee, for joining. So good to have you. And of course, like I said, there were many blows to be collected on the review this morning. And I'm sure those who collected, they're probably holding their eyes or trying to put on the band-aid.
My pleasure.
Thank you once again.
My pleasure.
All right, the morning show returns, and when we come back, we'll head deeper into today's program as we do take, the report on what the president said at NGE conference. And not to forget, we'll be discussing with the founders, the CEOs, of course, Chief Operating Officer, and the Executive Management Consultant of 042 Lotto that promises to brighten the future of the gaming sector in Enugu State. Do stay tuned.